Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be showing you how to remove and replace a set of rear axles on a 2017 Polaris RZR XP Turbo. We'll be using a set of Warthog heavy-duty axles for this video. The procedure in this video should apply to many side-by-sides and most RZRs in theory, as well as many ATVs. Enjoy the video. Mil for the wheel nuts. You'll need a 19 mil to take off the wheel on a RZR 1000 or a RZR Turbo. For older models, you might need a 17 millimeter. So this is the driver's side. This is the one that's missing, the one we broke. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by removing the radius rods, the brake caliper. The brake caliper is held on with two 15 millimeter bolts. The radius rods are held on by two 18 millimeter bolts. And then we also have to remove, or the castle nut, and that will allow us to remove the hub assembly from the spindle and allow us to remove the broken axle stub that is stuck in there right now. If you lift up a little bit on the spindle assembly, these radius rod bolts should come out a lot easier. Same goes for the bottom. Now the caliper, 15 millimeter. When you're reassembling both the radius rods and specifically the caliper onto the caliper carrier, be sure to use blue Loctite on those carrier bolts. Some people will even use red. I find the blue works good enough. Utilizing the blue Loctite compound rather than the red also makes this easier to take apart later. Take the caliper off. It should slide right off. Just place it out of the way somewhere. So now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this castle nut. Now with all these radius rods removed and everything, this trailing arm is free to move. It's just the shock holding it, the sway bar, and the pivot bearing. So now you're going to want to remove the castle nut, blow it off so it's nice and clean. There's always a whole bunch of dirt and crap in there, especially if you're missing a center cap. A bit of lube won't hurt either. These can be a pain to get off sometimes. There we go. With that removed, pay attention to the orientation of the washers. I like to have a magnet handy. I like to place the washers back the same way I took them out, because sometimes you'll see that they kind of cave in a bit or get a little bit of a cone look. So I figure I might as well put them back the same way I took them out. Now that you've done that, you should be able to slide the hub off the spines that hold onto the spindle assembly. Should just pop right in. If you'll be installing a new axle, then it should come with new washers, so you won't have to worry about the old ones. When you're taking all this stuff apart, pay attention, make sure there's no scoring anywhere, no excessive wear, no weird damage. It's an off-road vehicle, so weird things happen. Any of you guys that are familiar with the old platform RZRs, these turbo brakes are huge. These rears are bigger than the fronts used to be, and just look at how thick they are. And the fronts are even way bigger. So now we're left with just a spindle assembly attached to the trailing arm. And what's left inside here is our stub. So a good idea is to clean this off, slap it in a nice Ziploc bag, and carry it as a spare in the toolkit in the RZR, especially for longer rides. That way if someone breaks an axle and it's not the inner joint, then you can just swap this on there. So since we've had a broken axle and I pulled the axle, there might be some crap in the splines there. So now's a good time to clean them out so that your new axle seat's good. Look at all that mud. Make sure you do a real good job cleaning out the splines. You don't want those contaminated with anything. So as you see, those splines are just jammed full of mud. That's bad. You gotta clean that out so it's nice and clean for before you put the axle in. I'm just spraying it down with some penetrating lube. Pre-soak that mud and that crud a bit. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna pull out the other side axle before I put this one in. That'll allow us to see straight through there, and we can do a good job cleaning both sides out before we put the new HD axles in. So now we'll just slam through this passenger side real quick. Cleaning your machine thoroughly is a great time to find issues and problems that are developing. As I mentioned earlier, when you're doing service like this, especially on an off-road vehicle or any vehicle, it's a really good time to catch issues. You'll see I'm spraying off some of the dirt and the crud here. Not because I need to, mostly because I just want to see if everything's okay. Okay, so let's tear through this one real quick. Lube this, get your 18 mil, crack these. Lift up, pull the bolt out. Now you can get to the caliper bolts. Remove the brake caliper. Set it aside. You'll notice some of the bolts seem hard to get off. That's because everything's being assembled with blue Loctite the last time it was apart. Make sure you always replace all the cotter pins you remove with new ones. Remove the castle nut. With the castle nut removed, you should be able to slide the hub right out. Just like that. With that all out of the way, you should be able to pull the trailing arm towards yourself and get that axle out of there. Now, the key here is you're going to want to hold this axle nice and level and straight. This has to be completely straight, and you want to see the axle has plunge on that side. It goes in and out. That's to adjust with suspension movement up and down as the axle shaft length needs to change with the suspension's movement. So you don't want it like this. You want to bottom out the axle and then pull towards you. Hear that bottoming out? That's what's going to pop the C-clip inside. Let that axle come out. So bottom it out towards the machine and then pull like a slide hammer right hard towards you. Boom, that's what you're looking for. Boom, that hit. Boom, that hit. Boom, that hit. That one's being a pain. So this is typical. So what we're hoping doesn't happen is we're hoping that the axle, the CV joint itself doesn't separate inside. Usually that's not an issue with the stock axles, but it can be with certain aftermarket ones, cheaper ones. So just hard, pull, pull. There we go. It's in there good. That C-clip was holding. There's a lot of junk in there. Probably contamination that's blowing through from the other side when the axle was removed. You can see it all here. So what we'll do is, you can see it's dirty in there probably. We'll clean that out. There you can see right through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean these splines out so that they're as clean as they were when they were brand new. We're going to keep this axle as a spare. So now we'll clean that up. Once we're cleaned that up, we will go ahead and put the new axles in. When you're blowing this through, remember it's going to come out the other side. So I've got a car on that side. I don't want to get all covered in grease. So I'm going to plug this side up a little bit. Side's nice and clean because the axle is in. As mentioned earlier, spend some time on this. Do a good job cleaning out these splines so they look new. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that now. It's pretty darn clean, both sides. But just to be safe, I'm gonna stick a little wire brush in there. Probably a lot more crud in there we can't get out. I'm gonna spray a little bit of degreaser in there. And get my trusty toothbrush. And clean those splines out real good. Same to the other side. Now that everything's nice and clean, the splines are all clean, we can get our new axles and slip those in. A set of Warthog heavy-duty axles. They're chromoly. They're supposedly stronger than stock. So right away, you notice they have TPEE boots, not the soft rubber neoprene type material. These boots are soft and squishy. These boots are hard and not. They're still soft and flexible, but not like that. So they're more resistant to punctures, but we'll see. Players went from running this type of a boot to this type of a boot, back to this boot. One thing I like to do before I slip these in is, some people will grease them. I'm gonna put a little bit nuclear grade anti-seize on there. If it's good enough for a nuclear reactor, it's good enough for my axle. Just cover those splines. This should mostly help with getting these out later. It's not gonna hurt helping us get them in, but mostly this is for later on. As you saw, this axle was hard to get out. Hopefully this helps. I'm gonna put a bit on the other side of the spline too. So what you're gonna wanna do to insert this is get the splines lined up. Once those are lined up, bottom out the axle. In the inner, take your dead blow or your rubber mallet, you're gonna get that seated. Once again, hold the axle as straight as you can. Push that joint all the way in until it bottoms out, and then smack it. There, it's gone in, but you're gonna wanna hit it again to bottom it out. So the C-clip has compressed and let the splines slide in, but they're not in and seated all the way, so let's hit it again. There, you heard it bottom out. One more time. So you pull on it a bit. It's well seated. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you, heed my advice here, especially dealing with aftermarket offshore axles. This isn't a negative thing. I'm not pointing fingers or anything or dissing. These are a great deal for the money. I mean, you can't compete. You're getting an HD axle that works pretty well and is definitely stronger than an OEM axle, and you're getting it for a fraction of the cost of an OEM axle. So cut these guys some slack, they're helping you out. With that being said, these are a great product. I've been running these axles for over 1,000 kilometers now, real hard, and we haven't had a single issue with them yet. Notice these washers aren't flat. To put things into perspective, I didn't even get 1,000 kilometers out of the stock rear axles. They bend in. The bend goes towards, caves in so it contacts nice. I don't know what the proper term for that is. So this side, you don't really need to worry about anti-seizing these too much. This side's never a problem, but hey, why not, right? We're not gonna go crazy on this one, just a little bit. Okay, so now you're just gonna repeat what we did to remove this. There's nothing different about the procedure. So let's fly through this. So we're gonna take our axle, we're gonna pull the trailing arm towards us. There we go. We're gonna be careful not to hit the wheel bearing coming through here. Nice. We are going to grab our hub assembly. Before I put the hub assembly back, what I like to do is just wipe off all that old crud and grease and whatever else is on there. Put a little bit of grease on there. Once you've applied some fresh grease to the hub assembly, you're going to slide that back in there. Get those spines lined up. Once you've lined up the spines, it'll slide right back in there. There you go. Take your nut and your new washers. You want to position them, they're like this. You want that curved end going that way towards the machine. Finger tighten that for now. These radius rods can be a little pain in the butt to get in the top sometimes. Make sure if you're hitting it, you're not hitting too hard on this rubber here because you'll puncture it. Jiggling the rear trailing arm around usually helps maneuver the rear radius rods into place. Sometimes that trailing arm can flex and tweak a bit when you unbolt the radius rods, and you just have to shift it back into its position. Okay, now that that's in, the rest is pretty easy. We'll apply some thread lock agent, followed by our washer and our nylock nut. Remember, you should be using a new nylock if possible. We're going to grab our 18mm, we're going to snug that guy on. Nice and tight. Now we'll grab our 15mm, get it ready. Take our caliper, spread the pads out. Grab our first bolt, apply some thread lock agent. Get that started. Second bolt, apply some thread locking agent. Get that started. Tighten those guys up. 15mm. Work these guys up. Remember, you gotta thread lock these ones for sure. Get your lower radius rod positioned in place. Might have to pull on this a bit. Slide your bolt through the hole. Apply your thread locking agent. Slip on that washer. thread on that nylock nut. Grab your 18 mil. And slide that guy out. Tight. There we go. Now you can tighten up your castle nut. Get your 27 mil. That's tight enough. Put a new cotter pin in there. This side is done. So double check you torqued everything. We torqued that, put a new cotter pin in. We torqued both the 15 mil caliper bolts. We've also torqued both the 18 mil radius rod bolts, so that's all we need to do. The axle is well seated. Everything rotates just fine. Do a few rotations, make sure nothing's binding. Putting your hand on it lets you feel any mechanical movement inside. If there's a binding or a grinding, you'll feel it. Feel good. See how these boots hold up, hopefully well. So now we go on to the other side. We do the same thing. Thanks for checking out our axle installation video. We hope it helps you out. These Warthog HD axles have been serving us quite well over the last few months. We've got over 1,000 kilometers on them with no issues. As you saw in the install, everything went well and they're a good looking product. These axles were provided to us by Warthog, however, all the opinions are solely our own and not impacted by the team at Warthog whatsoever. If you enjoyed the video, then please share it with your friends, hit that like button, and check out our other videos and our other channel, Adrenaline Junkie Prod, where you can see these axles in use being abused. See you in the next video.